Chapter 26. If we do not convey, find the price of blood. We must go out with a heart of blazing fire. If I should save lives, I must convey the word after it has been deeply rooted in my spirit, so that even if rocks come flying at me and hit me, I can handle it. If I convey according to my thought, the power of the word does not arise. Even if one says the same thing in telling someone to believe in Jesus, if I convey such words having thrown myself away, those words can come alive and save the other person. But if I convey words by my lustful thought, then works do not arise. Thus, if we are to witness God, the mission that I must save lives must be certain. One must have the heart of blazing fire towards God in order to handle the mission. If so, the stir of God gets delivered. That is why I must throw away my things and fill myself with only the things of God. My lustful things must not go out. God's things must go out with a heart of blazing fire, so that the works of saving lives arise. We must proclaim boldly. The person who stands perfectly by God's word goes boldly no matter what kind of sound he or she hears. But a person who sinks down in fear because of those sounds cannot be called a leader. The number of people who gathered in Mark's upper room was about 120. As the Jewish people were going to Jerusalem for the events of the Passover, they saw Jesus' disciples. But who stood up very boldly? A leader is different. Peter, Jesus' best disciple, was a person filled perfectly with the word. He boldly declared the filled-up word to the crowd and the Jewish people who were gathered at Jerusalem. The words spoken by Jesus were already filled up in Peter's spirit, and they were now going out through his mouth. The word must also be filled inside of us so that we can confidently go out and proclaim. A leader of the era of love is a person who follows the way in which the word leads. If I mix in my things, I cannot be a leader. Deacon Stephen boldly proclaimed the word despite being a deacon. Now, the person who becomes bolder and gains more strength no matter the persecution is a leader of the era of love. Every time we open our mouths, the water of life must go out so that spiritually sleeping persons can wake up. In order for the lives to come alive inside the persons who know the word literally and as knowledge, the water of life must be put inside them. The word must go inside of their spirits and reform them. This is the work that we must do in this era. Now, the movement of God must appear from each and every individual spirit. First, God must appear from inside me in order for the works of saving to arise. Jesus said in John 16:25, I have said these things to you in figures of speech. The hour is coming when I will no longer speak to you in figures, but will tell you plainly of the Father. Thus, we are not to only see the wrappings, the metaphors, but such wrapping must tear in order for one to see God. He also said in John 6:55, For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. So we are not to know God as someone to study. We are to eat and drink God and open the eyes of the life inside our spirits. If one only accumulates the word literally and by knowledge, how could life come out? When one has eaten and drunken God, life comes out. When the word has become my flesh and blood, and when I have then opened my mouth, it can come out as life. Thus my movement must become the movement of God. Revelation 3:20 says, Listen, I am standing at the door, knocking. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come into you and eat with you, and you with me. I must eat and drink the word, and it must be digested, and God must move inside me for the water of life to come out. Thus, when I have opened my mouth, God's truth of living water must come out, so that this era is able to wake up. I must put my life on the line and go out and shout. It has become God's time. It has become time for words that were spoken in the inner rooms, as Luke 12:3 tells us, to be proclaimed from the rooftops. Now we must proclaim. What are we afraid of? It is time to reveal God. Time has come to pull out those who are in the dark into the light. When I put my life on the line and go out and shout, the sick will be healed, and the ones whom God had chosen will return to the God of the era of love. How are we going to experience the power of speech without even trying God's work? If we open our mouths, go out, and shout, then we ourselves will know whether we have the power of speech. The power of speech arises for the person who had thrown oneself away at the face of God. Works of saving lives arise. We will see words come alive and move. When we convey the word, we must not judge whether or not a person will receive, or judge which person will or will not receive. Since the authority to judge is only with God, all that we need to do is obey God's commands. Now, we must go out and shout. God is giving us money of the word, but why are we not using it? If we only pile up money, it is a useless thing. If a person who is supposed to live dies because I did not use that money, then what would happen? It is when money is used that the taste of it comes. Some people spend money very well and some only save it. But the person who only saves cannot feel the fun with regards to money. In this way, if we only keep the word filled up inside our spirits, what use would that be? We must know how to use what was filled. If one had earned money, one must use it. There are many places on which to spend money, so I must open my wallet. It has become time. We must reveal the era of love. When I've opened my mouth and shout, the power of speech will come out and fire will rest. Fire does not go out with words that I convey with my sound. When I've thrown myself away and spoken the sound of God, fire will then rest and works will arise. If we do not convey, find the price of blood. A prophet is namely sound, proclaimed by God through the human. The word is precisely a prophet. Sounds of the prophet speak prophecies on what is going to happen. If I do not receive those words and I step on them, then I become a person who kills a prophet. The prophet speaks truth, which she proclaims, and she is a person who was sent by God. Jesus was also a prophet sent by God, and he prophesied. But in this era, God's truth is being stepped on, and it is bleeding. That truth is being stepped on is because of the person who disobeys. The person who disobeys is someone who stepped on truth and caused blood to shed. By the living word, many people should be saved. But because I step on it, God is saying that the price of blood that saves them will be sought from my hands. If I do not convey, God says that the price of their blood will be found from my hands. This refers to the price of the blood of truth. God said to Ezekiel in Ezekiel 2:7, You shall speak my words to them, whether they hear or refuse to hear. If God's commands are not conveyed, God said in Ezekiel 33:8 that he would then require their blood at your hand. They are the lives of God. Truth is food of the spirit that is taken to this life, which is inside of the human's spirit. If they die because of me, God says that God will receive that from me. This means that if I do not convey, they will die. If so, I become a person who bears the mark of a murderer. God does not work by himself. God needs a tool, and we are God's tools. The one who moves me is God, but the one who does not move according to God's truth and goes according to one's own method is a person who has stepped on truth. God has given us the precious word of the era of love, but if I do not convey, God says that the price of their blood will be sought from me. If we cannot feed the person who is supposed to be fed, we are ones who have killed a life. This concludes the audiobook for Meet the King of Light, written and compiled in the original language Korean by Young-Rock Lee, and translated and narrated in English by Synovia Jihan in the USA.